What it is, YouTube? It's your boy DC coming back with another bullseye of a video here today on the channel. I wanted to do a free preset for Pierre Bourne. You know, I just recently listened to Sly Mirror. I was actually studying it, and I was listening to a lot of Pierre Bourne's work, and I wanted to give a free FLP. You know, just describing what are some of the plugins that I would use to achieve his signature sound. So if y'all like this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe down below. You want to support the channel, check the links, and also in the comments, let me know what you think. You'll also be able to find the link down below. Okay, so very first thing with Pierre Bourne, he always has that signature 808 in FL Studio, right? Not necessarily the FL Studio, but it always reminds me of like that short 808 that it's almost like Jetson made another one, but he always got that signature sound with great melody and great bass. So when it comes to the actual bass, I feel like his bass kind of reminds me of like a Georgia peach or a certain fruit because it has a great plumpness in the middle. So that's why I would use a plugin like Spectre to add plumpness to the mid-range. So a lot of the times when you have, 808 sounds, they've already been processed, they already been saturated. So, we don't really need more low end a lot of the times. And honestly, when you have Pierre Bourne, with the way he does his drum patterns, like there's a lot of movement in the bass, so you can't have super long basses. So you of course you probably shift the energy in the mid range so it could still hit hard, and that's why I would use something like Spectre to get that going. Okay, after that, I paid attention to a lot of I love the work that young Nudie and Pierre Bourne have done together a lot, like on Slimier. A lot of the songs on there are just like really good, and they're just like the perfect combination together. So when it comes to any other type of bass, because his basses jump around a lot, I probably use something like a Pro C on an 808 or a sub bass, and using the Pro C is great too. I'd probably be doing a little bit of a slow release compression so that the bass could get really held there. So you got contrast, you got a bass that's jumping and a bass that's super solid. Kind of like two patients that walk into a hospital. One of them is a lunatic, he's all over the place, and then the other patient that's kind of down and sad and he's chilling. Okay, we find ourselves at the kick, and of course I would use the clipper in FL Studio. I think the clipper is one of the more essential tools nowadays because it gives mid-range distortion. You feel me? The type of mid-range distortion that can really help things hit hard without you having to use EQ. So a couple of songs I like is like Sunflower Seeds, um not Slimier. Didn't he do another one though with Young Nudie? Oh, Slimier 2 is what I'm talking about. Okay. So you got I'm Big Dog. I like that song, 10-piece teriyaki, Come to My World, the beats, the production are great. So yeah, that's why I would use something like that. When it comes to the snare, his snares always have like not necessarily his snares, but his claps, they always have like a nice bright type of tone to it that is just kind of like upbeat. You feel me? Like his whole beats are just kind of upbeat and super bouncy. So I'd use the Gem Dopamine, and I like to use his default preset because it's super bright. So if you want to chunky up your hi-hats while also getting some brightness, your clap, hi-hat, or whatever you're using, use this plugin. It's pretty good. And you get to control a level of compression too. So if you want less dynamics, you could just compress more. So that's why I like that perfect tool. Then we have the hi-hats. I would use Soothe 2 for Pierre Bourne. His hi-hats are never really harsh, but I always like his hi-hat patterns because they aren't really trying to create the bounce. They're just more like a complementary side dish that's there for it. So the default preset on Soothe works great, and I usually play around with the sharpness, try to get it to be really sharp, just to give a ting 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 type of sound to the hi-hats. When it comes to the open hats, I probably throw a J37 tape, and his open hi-hats always kind of feel warm, not necessarily dark, but warm. So I use something like the tape saturation, which would also take off a little bit of that transient. All right. So many great songs on this project, even Loaded, Splash, Gotta Salute. I really enjoyed it. Decapitator for the drums. I use the triode tubes just to thicken up his drums, because like I'm always saying his drums and like his whole music, Pierre Bourne, his beats are always thick. You feel me? They always have this great weight to them. If you put them on a scale, that scale, the needle would move around because the beats are fat. You feel me? They just got this fatness to it that makes them sound good. Right. So then RC20 for the piano. Anytime Pierre Bourne has keys, they always have like this wobbling detune type effect. Even though the melodies are I don't want to say redundant, but very similar. There's still, it feels like there's some variation, and a lot of time that probably comes through using stuff like wobbling, using stuff like modulation. Just to make things interesting, just to make them a little bit more non-linear. All right. When it comes to the pads, I'll use something like a 6176. I think it's great because it's got the two preamp, which is gonna warm up any sounds from Omnisphere that Pierre Bourne will use on his sphere. Analog Labs, those digital synth sounds, warm them up, make them feel a little bit more organic. You make them feel organic, like if you go into Whole Foods, you feel me? Whole Beats. And then using something like the 1176 is good too on a medium release to add a little bit more movement as well, because that 76 is gonna clamp down onto it, but at the same time just ever so slightly twitch, providing a little bit of movement. Okay, in terms of synth, I like tremolators. If Pierre Bourne is using something like a Rhodes, you feel me? And I want to maybe I want to make that the Rhodes keys bounce a little bit more. I might add just a touch of tremolator and blend the depth. The depth is coming almost like the parallel mix knob. So that would be something that I would use for that. Okay. After that, bells. He does use a lot of bells and stuff too. But the overall music bus, I would just use like a broadband boost on the Spectre to add overall low mid. And because sometimes his 808s are pretty short, it can make it feel like there's a lack of bass in the song too. So that's why you might want to thicken up the music bus a little bit more. In terms of a lead vocal for a guy like Young Nudie, I think the Neve 1073 and the CL1B is a great combo because his voice is mostly mid-range focus. And those two plugins together have a great way of adding density to the mid-range, adding character to the mid-range, and kind of accentuating, a lot of the real nil down, pinpoint slime down, really accentuating a lot of his vocal character. So that's why I would use something like that. Then the BX console E, I probably drive the console, the line amp a little bit, just so I could get some distortion on a Young Nudie vocal, just so I could feel like the hood, like the streets. EMT 140 plate, just so it could feel like a shooting star. Like if I'm at a show performance and I'm dropping a spotlight on the vocal, I like this reverb, even though it's kind of a little bit brighter, it's gonna give that luxurious spotlight to the vocal. Okay, so that's why I would use that. And for the master, I would just use God Particle because I know it's gonna add width and a little bit more juice. You feel me? I got the juice like OJ to the beat, and just the whole production with a basic fresh air and a Pro L2. You feel me? So I'd keep it simple with Pierre Bourne, and I think that he is one of the better producers. He did a lot of good work with Cardi. He did a lot of work with Young Nudie. I would consider him an underground legend. What do you guys think? Would you consider Pierre Bourne an underground legend? Because he does have a lot of hits with many artists that still sound good today. And also he was kind of like innovating with his production, even though it was like that new wave sound. He figured out how to add his own twist to it and make it even better. And I feel like that's why he's had a sustained career to this point. So if you guys like this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe down below. You want to grab the preset, you'll see it in the link down below. Just want to say appreciate y'all now, YouTube gang. Peace.